Hi, this is Margaret from the blog Don't Call It Bollywood, and this is this week's box office post. This week, the big story, of course, is Race 3, which released on Friday. I was very curious how the box office would do because I went to see Race 3 on Friday, and I noticed two things right away. The first was that my theater was completely sold out, and this is a theater that doesn't usually sell out. And the second was that it's a terrible movie. So I was very curious how the box office would be with this combination of very bad movie and completely sold out on Friday night when I saw it. So the end result is that the box office was about 4,000 per screen in America. 4,000 means theaters are maybe two-thirds, half full. Vera D. Wedding, for instance, opening night was twice that. Opening weekend was twice that per screen, which means every single show was sold out. If my show, opening night, was completely sold out, and yet the overall box office was only 4,000 per screen, that means there has to have been a steep decline over the next 2 days in order to bring down the average. Which makes sense since, again, it's a terrible movie. Not terrible in that, oh, haha, it's so bad, but it was still fun. No, it's just bad in every way. So I can see why the box office would go down once people actually saw it and started talking about it. On the other hand, the box office for Razi and Vera D. Wedding is holding steady. Even in weeks 3 and 6, they're still making well over 1,000 per screen, which is a big deal. 1,000 per screen is nothing opening week, but if you're talking about later weeks, that's a really good average. So what's going on with this? I'll start with just looking at Salman in particular. 4,000 per screen is about what all of his recent movies have done. Not Tube Light. Tube Light was far, far less than that. But Sultan, Tiger Zinda Hai, all of these movies that have been called Salman hits have actually not done that well. They've been released on a lot of screens, but they haven't been selling out. It's possible if they were released on fewer screens and the per screen average might have remained the same, and then nobody would be calling them a hit. They'd just be calling them an average movie. But since they were released on 300 screens or something like that, even if the per screen average is fairly average, they end up looking like these massive box office hits. Salman hasn't delivered a true sold-out box office hit since Prem Ratan Dan Payo and Bajrangi Bhaijaan. Everything since then has just been the kind of box office you can get if you release on a lot of screens and have a big promotion and a big weekend. It's not for nothing that this released on Eid. It was the only movie releasing on Eid. If you look at box office figures for the UK and Germany, for instance, those are two very new markets for Indian film. They usually don't do very well. Well, Germany's new. The UK isn't new, but it still usually doesn't do well with Indian film. Partly because the UK box office is fairly flat in general, but they just have not been feeling the Indian films lately. However, Eid weekend, both those markets were doing spectacularly good, the best they've done in months. And I'm guessing it was just because it's Eid weekend. Both Britain and Germany have a substantial Muslim population, yet at the same time, not necessarily a large enough Muslim population for there to be alternative options for Eid. For instance, in America, where I am, there was Kala, which was also playing if you wanted to see something for Eid that was not Hindi. And there were also specials at restaurants and parties and this, that, and the other thing. There was a lot of stuff you could do besides just go see a movie. I doubt that that's entirely the case in Germany, and it may not be the case in Britain. There was definitely a holiday bump for this particular release. So add together holiday bump, big promotion campaign, large number of screens, you get this box office. You do not get this box office because it is a high quality film or even because the star power is enough to drive people in. Star power has sort of a balancing act. You have to start wondering, is it because the star himself has power or because he is perceived to have power and therefore is given the kind of release that leads to this kind of success? I'm leaning more and more towards he is perceived to have power. The last few really true Salman Khan hits were also really true good movies just on their own. It wasn't just because Salman was in them. It was because they were high quality films in general. all his other movies, stuff like Sultan, which it wasn't a bad movie, but it wasn't a great movie. And if Salman hadn't been in it and we'd never heard of it, no one would have shown up. I mean, the script was kind of funky and yeah, it wasn't that great. And all of the movies like that have been solidly 4,000 per screen opening night. It's just not driving the business the way it used to. Now, let's go back to Razi and Vera de-Wedding. Those are at the perfect point. The thing with the cons is, excepting maybe Amir, they're no longer hungry. They're no longer looking for the next new thing. They're no longer looking to stretch themselves, to challenge themselves. They're just sort of going along. Good movies much of the time, but nothing really remarkable. And the audience, I think, is beginning to learn that. If it's a con movie, it no longer guarantees a certain level of quality. It guarantees a certain level of gloss, but not a certain level of actual quality of the film. Meanwhile, Sonam Kapoor and Alia Bhatt are slowly beginning to get a reputation as people who do guarantee that kind of quality. It takes a long time because audiences are reluctant and slow to start noticing the names of heroines and start paying attention to actresses. But eventually, people are remembering the names Alia Bhatt and Sonam Kapoor and are starting to connect them with their previous films and remember that these are people who guarantee a certain level of quality. Plus, Razi and Vera de-Wedding were very good movies to release. Race 3, in theory, is an all-family film. It's certainly silly and fun and so on and so forth. But in reality, it's not that entertaining. It's not that challenging for the whole family. Vera de-Wedding, you could tell just from the poster it was going to be a big, fun wedding movie. Razi, similar thing. You could tell just from the trailers it was going to be an exciting thriller, but not super violent, not super scary for the kids. So you have two actresses who are beginning to slowly get known, and you have two films that were very well made and carefully made, and the posters alone told the audience that they would be well made and carefully made. And they end up having a better success rate than Race 3. Because Race 3, you look at Salman and you're beginning to know him as the guy who just doesn't care as much anymore. You look at the poster and you can see right away it's not going to be for you, and it starts dropping the box office. So what I'm saying is, looking at the box office this week, it's partly the rise of women, but it's more the rise of people who really care about making movies that will get them noticed and be a success, and those people happen to be women because it's harder for women to get noticed. And it's also the fall of lazy, stupid movies that are trying to just get by on the superstar's name. Anyway, that's how it looks to me. You can agree, you can disagree. Just leave me a comment on my blog. There's a link right below. I'd love to talk with you there. Thanks. Bye.